Hey guys, 9 techniques to make billions in sales, and these are innovative new age techniques for the 2016 market. Obviously, marketing has definitely changed. So sales is so important. Sales is basically what runs your business. If you're an entrepreneur or if you're just making sales, I'm sure you understand that sales and marketing is the life force of your business, and without sales, you do not have a business. So you need to be very skilled in sales. So I'm getting these techniques, just so you know where my sources are coming from a man named Darren Hardy. He's the author, best-selling author of this book here called The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. He's mentored several very successful CEOs, and he himself has been a business leader for the past 2 decades. He definitely has experience in this industry, and he has a lot of experience in sales, and he also knows a lot of people in his network that have sold billions in sales, and he's taken the wisdom and the advice from these people, and as well as his own wisdom and advice, and he put it in a book for us, and he put it in a nice chapter that outlines 7 awesome techniques for increasing your sales and also for how to sell in a smart way. Okay, so let's get started right into the tips. So tip number 1 is don't kill your customer. Sometimes it's just a matter of reframing the way that you see your customers. And so sometimes it's a matter of not seeing them as something that you want to conquer or someone that you want to get something from. Rather, see them as human beings who have a need, that you have a solution to meet their need, and that you genuinely want to help them and improve their quality of life. And once you reframe this way of seeing it, your whole tone and your whole approach towards them will change, and it will become authentic, and it will become genuine. And then your prospects and potential customers will pick up on that, and they will be much more likely and willing to buy from you because you will be giving off a totally different vibe. Number 2 is get in bed with your customer. Believe it or not, the number 1 quality of a very effective sales message is empathy. Yes, empathy and connection. The customer needs to feel that you understand who he or she is. They need to feel understood in order for that connection to be established and to convert them into lifelong customers. He kind of gives this example exercise that you can do to really get into the heads of the customers that you're trying to reach, and that is just to imagine that you are them and that you are going to bed at night, you're crawling into bed, and you're looking up at the ceiling trying to fall asleep. What are their greatest fears? What are their greatest desires? Who do they hope to impress? What are their goals? What do they think they need help with? Who are they afraid of? When you ask these type of very deep and profound type of questions about your potential client, you will start to develop a language in your own mind when you're describing this person, and that is the type of language that you need to use on your customers, because when you use the kind of language that they understand, they will feel connected, and then they will definitely want to buy from you. Tip number 3 is don't be a first date Fred. So Darren, the author, goes into this whole story about this college friend that he knew. His name was Fred. He was wrapping up his first year in medical school, and he was trying to find a wife, basically. He was trying to find a life partner, and he was going through woman after woman after woman, taking her on date after date after date. And for some reason, none of these women wanted a second date with him. They were like, or nah, and he didn't really get why. And it wasn't until Darren happened to meet up with one of these women like randomly, and he asked, why didn't you go on a second date with Fred? And she was like, honestly, Fred didn't ask anything about me. All he did was go on and on about his life and his dream and his vision, and how he wanted the perfect wife who he would treat like a queen, and she wouldn't have to work a day in her life. But yet he didn't ask one question about me, and he didn't even know that I had my own business, and that's not what I wanted in life, was to just be a housewife. And so there was no connection there. You need to find out what your customer thinks he or she needs. not what you think he or she needs, what they perceive they need. So it's all about, again, getting into the mind of what he or she thinks that they need, because that is the real need. If they don't think they need something, then you don't have a sale. They have to think that they need this product or this service. So the best way to find out what they already think they need is to investigate, to ask questions. Pull, don't push. Investigate, don't present. Probe, don't pitch. Ask, don't assume. How do you do this? Talk less, listen more. Make less statements and ask more questions. So just get into the investigation type of mood, right? And start asking questions like you would in a conversation if you're trying to get to know someone. And then find answers that serve as solutions. Number 4 is become an ultimate connector. So Darren Hardy knows quite a few people in the high-end real estate business. He knows a guy named John Lennon who has sold $3.7 billion worth of real estate. Yeah, and only on one street in South Beach, Miami. So it's this really high-end, like sophisticated luxury street, and it's amounted to $3.7 billion. So this guy knows how to sell. And so when they compared this guy to his competition on average sold about made one sale a month, and he, John Lennon, sold one a day. So it's like huge, like he was totally just killing it, knocking all of his competition totally out of the park. So Darren was like, how do you do it? And I'm just gonna read you what John Lennon said. John Lennon said, sure, we sell the same buildings and the same units even, but I sell something different for every different person. He said, one time the building developer called to ask what I had sold that day. I said I sold a $4 million parking space, a $2.8 gym and spa access pass, and a $6 million closet, and each came with an apartment included. The developer said, what do you mean you sold a $4 million parking space? John went on to explain that in each case he discovered what was most important to each client. Take the parking space, for example. The buyer had vintage cars and had a bad experience in a previous building. John spent an hour explaining the security, safety, and cleanliness of the underground parking. The buyer couldn't write the check fast enough. So the secret to this guy's success and to your potential success is that John is the ultimate connector. He finds his client's most important desire, need, or hot button and connects the solution he has to meet to it. So he's very customer specific, but once he does find that hot button or greatest desire, he focuses all his energy and effort onto it. And that's totally what you could do if you're selling cars, if you're selling real estate, if you're selling even like an ebook or something. You could find out what that customer most needs or desires and then really hone in all of your effort and your pitch towards that one need or desire. Okay, number 5 is find a relationship bridge. So in today's day and age, cold calling is for rookies. It really isn't effective anymore. This is what Darren is saying. He's saying it's for rookies now because so many people are desensitized and overstimulated by marketing and advertising and all these campaigns, and nobody has time to talk to telemarketers. So cold calling is for rookies, and your best bet to secure a sale is to try to find some type of relationship bridge. Try to find somebody who knows who you're trying to sell to, especially if you're trying to sell something that's very high value. Maybe try to find who they do business with, like who their lawyers are or who their financial advisors are, or just somebody that would know these people personally, and then get them to recommend you. And then once you're recommended by a credible and trusted source, they're much more likely to want to buy from you and want to check out whatever you have to offer them. Number 6 is sell in bulk. So this is another great strategy to try, is that instead of making individual sales one by one, try to sell large amounts of product, or try to find people like influencers or, celebrities or somebody who has access to a large part of your target market. So for instance, let's talk about YouTube. I get approached a lot, especially on my health channel, from different businesses asking me to review their product or to create a video about their product. And this is, they're using their strategies that they're selling in bulk, and they're finding influencers who already have a connection with who they're trying to target. So I or other YouTubers have the potential to connect with a much broader customer base. So that is what the whole idea of selling in bulk is. And again, it's another great selling strategy. Number 7 is deliver shock and awe. So sometimes this can backfire, but these type of really aggressive campaigns are often quite successful. So I'll just give you another example that the author himself uses from his own life. So Darren sold in real estate, and when a contract expires with a real estate agent and a house doesn't sell, all the other real estate agents have 24 hours to try to secure this listing for themselves, for, so they could sell this house. These people, they're bombarded with several real estate agents saying, oh, let me be a real estate agent, I'll sell your house. And Darren was one of these people. And so in order for him to secure a contract with someone who's trying to sell their house, he would unleash this, he called it a shock and awe blitz campaign. That's what he called it. And he said, once I set my sights on you, you were either going to love me or hate me. But 2 things were certain. You would not be able to ignore or forget me. So here's how his campaign went. Between 6 and 7 a.m., the morning your listing expired, I'd be standing on your doorstep asking to relist your home with me, immediately separating myself from everyone else and delivering a little shock. Sometimes this was all it took, but if they declined, later that day you would get a package hand-delivered by an assistant, a package that we affectionately called da bomb, because it was big and stuffed full of combustible materials, explaining why I was da bomb. So yes, it was cheesy, but a lot of the times it actually worked. And if it didn't, then in the early evening, an assistant would show up, hand them a sold sign, and say, this is a gift from Darren Hardy. You'll need it soon after you hire him to sell your house. Boom. That's what he puts in the book. Later that evening, I would stop by in person and ask for the listing again. If the listing still hadn't been secured, I would have something hand-delivered or mailed to them every day for at least 2 weeks, along with a daily call or visit from me personally. It wasn't long before they would call exasperated, exclaiming that if I could market their house like I marketed myself, I had a job. So he does admit that this campaign was pretty extreme, but he has a lot of experience selling. He knows how to sell, and he knows what he's doing. And he says he's not just doing it for fun. He says in competitive markets, things happen quickly. In real estate, for example, when it comes to expired listings, more than 50% of the time the listing is won or lost within the first 24 hours. So you don't have a lot of time to make things happen. He says that little window of time means you can't be casual unless you want to be a casualty. So again, I'm taking this advice to heart. For certain industries, this approach does work. And again, he knows a mortgage broker, one of the top mortgage brokers in the world. And he asked, how do you sell so many mortgages? And this is what she told him. I lose 1 out of 5 for being too aggressive, but I get the other 4. So being aggressive does work. Keep that in mind. And you just have to have a thick skin for that, and you have to not let rejection get to you. Okay, tip number 8, sell to the best, forget the rest. So to maximize your efforts, you need to focus on the best buyers. That is usually 10% of your client base. And he says, just as a general rule, spend 90% of your time focused on the 10% client type. So how do you distinguish the 10%? He said there's 3 easy ways to do that. He says they're easy. They're readily accessible and easy to reach, costing you little advertising, marketing, and sales effort. So they're very easy to get your message to. They're fast. They have the greatest, most obvious perceived needs. So when presented with your solution, they see the value quickly and are quick to make a decision and purchase. So they have a very great need for what you have to offer. And lastly, they're profitable. They are the type that once converted, their lifetime value is high because of their transaction size, upsell purchases, frequency of repeat purchases, and referrals. So there aren't as many of these, top 10 clients, but the point is that you narrow your focus and you focus on these people. Figure out who they are and then keep them as lifelong loyal customers. Keep their trust and they will be lifelong customers. And number 9, last, is find your dream 50. So once you kind of narrow down to your 10% of your best clients, he says narrow even further. So in this, again, Darren tells a personal story about how he was able to make his magazine called Success so successful and sell millions of copies. And when he launched this magazine, the publishing industry was already kind of on the decline just because of all the digital publishing going on now. And he also launched it during the recession in March 2008, so also very terrible time. So the magazine, which was a previously failed magazine, but he took it over and relaunched it. And by the time that he had spent all his money on, first of all, buying up this, Success magazine, developing it, and then creating it, he didn't have anything left on the budget for marketing. He had no marketing money. How is he going to sell his magazine? Under these terrible circumstances, he implemented what's called a Dream 50 strategy. With the content complete and pages in final editing, the team at Success got together around a conference call under fluorescent lighting and asked ourselves, how can we sell magazines not one by one, but by the tens of thousands? Who do we know? Who is responsible for large networks of people who yearn to be inspired, empowered, and more successful? So they're trying to narrow in, who is our target market? How can we sell millions of magazines to certain people who influence millions of people in our target market? And this is where it gets good. Who are the 50 people we need to sell on the idea of a magazine that teaches the secrets of success, a magazine for achievers? 50 people who, if they believed, could bring us millions. Once we had our list of 50, we focused all of our time and energy on selling them, and only them, on success, on what we stood for, and on what we could do for our readers. That Dream 50 made our dreams come true. And he said not even all 50 on this list engaged, not even half of them engaged. Candidly, Success broke a multi-decade losing streak with the help of 8 believers. Just 8 people who saw the vision and got on board. So he sold 1 million copies on the first issue because of these 8 people. That is how he got this magazine off the ground, and how it got successful was he found the right people to sell to. And sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right people to sell to. And he says, if you could build a dream list, who would be on it? Often, your Dream 50 will consist of people you don't currently even have on your prospect list. You might not have had the courage to write them down before, and add them now. Make a big kahunas list. Those you dream of being in business with. These are prospects who, with just 1 or 2 converted to clients, you could change your world and the future of your family. So again, a lot of that is like, it's who you know. It's who you can get on your side. It's who you can get to go into business with you and be your customer, and then create millions of customers for you, right? So those are the 9 innovative techniques for creating billions in sales. I hope that this was useful to you. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. If you enjoyed this video, I will have more of them to come. So hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.